Hello, everyone. This is Realtor Linda Peltz. Today I'm here with Hillary, and she's going to tell you all about her business and how she can help you. Take it away, Hillary.
Hi, thank you, Linda. Thank you for inviting me. And I'm in LA today, in Beverly Hills, to be specific, but
Nice.
it is nice. And it actually does look like this at night. This is LA at night in the background. I know it looks like I'm on CNN. This actually is a pretty accurate depiction of what LA looks like at night. So
Beautiful. Yeah.
we are fortunate with the sunsets. We also have offices in the Bay Area and my second home in New York. So we handle primarily the big three in California, New York. I'm licensed in DC and Montana. We provide services there as well. So that would be real estate, which is your area, Linda.
Hmm.
And you guys should call Linda if you're in the area. She can help you out. And we
Central
also,
Valley here.
and business law and employment law. And we represent people across a variety of industries, including the entertainment industry. We represent a lot of real estate companies, Fortune 500 companies, individual executives, things like that. And we also, our range of services, we do everything from the mom and pop shops. We do help those to bigger companies and executives within those companies or big companies from those. We're different from a lot of firms in that we are a small to mid-sized firm, but we have offices, as you know, throughout. We take on big law. So a lot of firms will not do that in litigation. We do.
It's
We
time
have
consuming.
it's time consuming, but you know what? It's necessary. It's not getting your day in court should not be about who can litigate the other side. I was in trial on Tuesday, just a half day trial. Went real fast. We won. And I went into the courtroom, and I have to say, I'd had a long weekend with briefing and all these, like 10 or 12 days straight. You know, my partner was out of town. And I looked at it and I go, I know why I like being a lawyer and a trial lawyer, because you go into the courtroom and there's this feeling that you don't always know if you're going to win. I mean, you can't take it for
Right.
granted. You gotta,
Right.
but there's a feeling of fairness.
Hmm.
There was a feeling like there is a judge here, there's a bailiff here, there's a clerk here, there's a system. And we are so fortunate in the US, all of us Americans, to have systems in place where we can get a day in court. I know there are issues with whether it's really fair, things like it, but no other country in the world has this. Trial by jury, impartiality, checks and balances, where you can go in
They
and I go,
stand a better chance here if they're really innocent than they do other
that's
countries.
right. Or to have your case heard and someone's going to
Hmm.
listen to you. And again, part of my job is to make sure that people do. We handle a lot of litigation. We also do a lot of transactions. But again, going back to this, going into that courtroom, it was fair. And again, I've been doing this for 32 years now. Yes, I have. And it's California.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so I've been in a lot of courthouses. Not all of them are throughout California because there's so many, several in New York, other states when I'm admitted there provisionally. But you go in there and you know it, this is fair. You don't always know. But sometimes I think we all lose sight of the fact that one of the reasons it's the greatest country in the world is because we have this system in place. And it's an honor to be a lawyer. I think every day when you're busy, you forget
Hmm.
how fortunate we are to be lawyers and to have lawyers and have judges and to have bailiffs and the police and things like that. So it is, and you're in there and it's the great seal of the state of California is you're behind the judges thing and there's the flag there and of the US flag and the state of California, and other states have different, flags, obviously, but we're fortunate that way. We
Yeah,
also,
it kind of makes it feel official, like you say, you're going to be heard. People are
yeah,
going to see you and hear you.
and this is why we're here, what it's about. And sometimes I think the hustle and bustle, and if you're in a big city or a small town, and one of the great things about California is it's full of huge cities like LA and San Francisco, and our offices in Contra Costa County, and we have an office in Manhattan. But you also have these small towns too, where people come from, and you can live and you can have a life, and it's very nice. And we're lucky to have all that, and the resources and the beauty and the huge economy that we have here, as
Hmm.
well as in the world. And for real estate in your area, we do a lot of real estate here. We
Can
represent
you give
commercial.
us some examples? I mean, I'm just curious as to some of the trials that you've been able to maneuver and win.
Sure. We have had HOAs are a big thing now, as you know. So there's the fiduciary duty. Was this handled correctly? How did they behave themselves? Was the board okay? What about an individual property owner's rights? We also represented people who have a lot of commercial buildings, a
Mm.
lot of commercial transactions. So we're representing them, for example, transactions if they want to lease. We're one of the firms that does both. Some clients come to us and they go, I've talked to a lot of attorneys they only do litigation. They don't do any litigation. So we have to go somewhere else for that. So you wind up having six attorneys where we don't do
Mm,
everything, but we try to provide a lot of service. Like we can help you with insurance. We can help you with real estate business. Do you want to form an LLC? One that we won was a boundary dispute. Where is your property line? How long has it been used? Another one was a very common. This
good one.
happens a lot. People just assume, in LA, as you know, or anywhere else, a piece of property can become extremely valuable if it's accessible, things like that. We
Hmm.
do a lot of, there's a lot of easement and land use work too. There's
Hmm.
with cities are so overcrowded that a place that was a wasteland before is now full of people, and how property is used, how it's accessed, things like that. We represent both. Some people do residential and just commercial. We do both. It depends on the client, but we're seeing a lot of HOAs, a lot of boundary disputes. A lot of you,
I've had
maybe.
one of those before. Luckily, it really depends on how copacetic both parties are as to if they end up over at you, right? So in my particular case, it was a garage. So this had started out as a farm piece of land, right? And brother had built houses and the garages was over boundary lines, like you said. And okay, fast forward 50 years, and now this property's trying to sell to individual people. They're no longer family owned, right? And here's this garage right in the middle of the property boundary, but in that particular case, the seller realized it, and I had already, informed him that garage is going to have to be taken down because that's on the other property. That's no longer your property.
Right.
So, I mean, it worked out, and both the buyer and the seller, and then I just had my contractors, because I run a full crew, they went in and took that down. And I was just, it was so funny because I was actually just by there the other day. I just happened to be going that way, and I thought, oh, I'm just going to stop by that property. And sure enough, they have their little fence around their property. But you're right, that's a big one, is that property
It
boundary.
is, and then probably with your expertise, Linda, and your experience in real estate, you knew what to do, but a lot of people don't. And it's, people get upset, they get hurt feelings,
Mm-hmm.
some people like to fight. It's almost never a good idea to fight over things. I've had clients, I'm like, look, you're not going to do any worse if you go to trial, but we always
Right.
try to work things out. I don't push that. It's very expensive. You don't know, often they say a good settlement is something that both parties are a little could have done a
Mm-hmm.
little better at it, maybe not. But land is such a huge deal to everybody. It's where you live, it's where you work, it's where it maybe you reside, or you do business, or where it's just, everybody has to be on land somewhere, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
rented, owned, leased, whatever it is, you're going to have to do that. So, yeah, we do a lot of those. We do a lot of commercial litigation over things, did you breach the lease? Did you do these things? Often what happens is these happen in a business context. For example, if you buy a business, there may be an issue of a lease and how the lease is going to be handled, and what intangibles or tangibles come with that. For example, the name of the company, the property that's within it. So maybe you're selling your business in the lease or things like that. We handle a lot of those. Some of those have gone to litigation because if there's enough money there, people are always often trying to do that. Yeah, we've had ones, I've handled ones where we represent brokerage houses, brokers like you around town and things like that.
Right.
And, a dissatisfied buyer or seller will sue them saying, you handled this wrong. You didn't do this right, things like that too. So we've had those. Get insurance for those people who are doing that, so that it's, but saying, you should have known about this or you should have known about that. We've had those and successfully prosecuted and defended those. Those are some of the main ones. There's landslides. Sometimes a person doesn't maintain their property safely, and you're on the bottom side. Someone on the bottom side of the hill starts to come down into your kitchen.
That
Things.
happened to my uncle twice.
Yeah, and again, it's what was the hillside properly maintained? I don't know, but we
Yeah.
need to figure that out. That's where contractors like you are very wise to be working with. If you are in real estate, always have a good contractor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, remember that
Definitely.
everybody, if you're doing that, and there are business disputes. Sometimes partnerships don't work out.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be, usually they can be resolved privately, sometimes not. Often what happens is one feels they're putting in more labor and capital, than the other, or one wants to go off and get another better deal, or it's often things like that. We've had disputes like that. We've had disputes where there are disagreements, often in family-owned companies. I'm actually doing for CEB this weekend a presentation on some of the issues with family-owned businesses.
Oh,
Friends, yeah, I'm not saying it's not a good idea to do business with family and friends. I've had some very successful relationships in those, particularly with friends. And I think it's nice if you know the person, you like and trust the person. That can be fantastic.
have a lot of
Yeah,
the same moral issues or the
yeah,
same moral
yeah, and
goals.
it's something if you've known the person for a long time, you can trust them. But on the flip side, things change in people's lives.
That's
We've
true.
all seen it. Addictions, unfortunately, substance abuse, domestic
Yes.
violence, financial
Sadly, yes.
difficulties, bankruptcy, often a toxic spouse. We have seen this where someone is a different person after they get married, and it's not always good. Maybe their spouse is a spender, they're abusive, they're hostile. You never know. A bad marriage or a bad relationship can make your professional life topsy-turvy. Gambling is another one. Unfortunately, it's a very sad thing.
I think
So,
alcohol's a big one.
alcohol, well, and drug use. You'd be
Drug
very
use, yeah.
surprised. Alcoholism is still the primary one that I see. I see it in our profession. I see it, and I don't drink at all. That's my
I
personal,
don't either.
not for health or other AA reason. It's not something I ever like to do. Do I like a cigar once in a while? Yes, I do. I shouldn't, but I do. But,
Mhm.
these drugs things and all this kind of stuff, it leads to so many problems. It's not going to lead anywhere good. And see those, mental illness, unfortunately, sometimes handles things, those are, happen. So, a person you knew at some point in your life may not be the same person today. Maybe things have not gone well for them. They haven't developed skill sets. So it doesn't always mean like a childhood high school or college friend or a young adult friend may be friends throughout your life. However, if you have those connections and contacts and they've been good, that can be a good thing. And
Mhm.
it's a lot nicer than, and some people you just have to go out in the world and get to know them. I've had to do it, you've had to do it. But I do find this people you've known a long time, there's a level of trust, there's a level of comfort, there's a level of security because you've dealt with this person before. You've been through things with this
Mhm.
before. You never know how
They've
someone.
met with success a certain, to where you've got a good chance.
Right, exactly. And going through life experiences with people too is, I think, important. It's kind of that saying in sports, I don't know if I'd ever want someone who never lost a game because you don't know how they're going to react. You
Mhm.
do not know how they're going to handle. Are they going to go into a tailspin? You know,
I
you, we,
preach that all the time. Be as good a loser as you are a winner. And
that's right.
there's sometimes they gloat and everything else. That's not cool either. Be a graceful loser or a
Or
graceful
what
winner.
do they do to win? Yeah. And
Yeah.
again, people, yeah. And again, the way they conduct themselves can be, but if you've never lost a big
Mhm.
fight or something like that, you're not going to know how to how that goes. And,
That's
I would be very skeptical of someone like that. Someone who says they've never lost a trial. Okay, there's probably a few, knock on wood, but I don't know. I don't really know any.
hmm
To me, it probably mean they passed it off to someone else. They passed the loser off to someone else. And I'm not
definitely.
saying it's fun to lose because I hate it. And I win over
None of us
90.
like it, but somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. So you
Right.
need somebody that can tell your side of it well to get the point across as to what really happened, because there's always two sides to every story. So,
Right, right. And again, and a good lawyer wins far more than they lose, for sure. And if you have someone that's gone a losing streak, that's not good either. But, on the other hand, I've seen it happen in firms, and I'm not going to name anything, but where the loser case gets passed off to someone else. So they're sort of hanging them out to dry because they know this case is winnable. It's not that you can't win it all, but it's very unlikely. You've seen
yeah.
that. So I have to say, in my profession, I'm a little suspicious of that. If someone says, "Oh, I never lose," I'm like, well, no,
What's
you've
some
never.
good what's some good contact information for you so that they can get a hold of you and maybe they can utilize your services?
I would be happy to on either coast and throughout the state. You're welcome to take our look at our website, which is Hillary at Hillary Trial Lawyers, HILLARY, and just type in Hillary Johns. And you can reach me at the email I just sent or Hillary Trial Lawyers, the website, or you can also reach me at 310-492-4009, and I'd be happy to talk to you about anything you'd like. And what we also like to do, Linda, so want to add, if it's not something we can handle, we like to be a resource for people. So then they can call us and I can say, well, it's not something we can handle. Let me give you some names.
Good
And
point. Good point.
or would you like, if it's someone I know, I could call and get in touch with them and see if they're available. And that way, so, for example, we get a personal injury referrals often, and there are personal injury attorneys who I know are good. And I say, I know them. I'm going to email them your contact information. They're going to expect your call. Call them. I can't guarantee they'll help you, be able to help you, or what the outcome would be, but I know them. I'll let them know you're coming. That way the person's like, oh, okay,
It's
they
kind
feel at
of an
least like,
introduction.
yeah,
Get a little bit
exactly.
easier foot through the door.
Exactly. So it helps the person who's called, it helps the attorney who's getting referred to, and there's a certain, and I can feel good at, sometimes I have to say, I don't, yeah, for example, sometimes people retire, or things like that, and sorry, such and such referred to retire. We don't currently. I could ask around for peer referrals, and I've done that too. If I can, I do like to do that too, and just say, obviously we don't give financial or tax advice or things like that, but to be that resource that people come to, I don't know, but I bet Hillary might know someone, or Stephen, my partner, might know someone. Someone might know someone, they can get in touch with.
That's fantastic. Everybody, this is Realtor Linda Peltz. Today I was with Hillary, a wealth of information. If you need to get a hold of her, please do. My license number is 01997670. Make sure you like our channel so you can keep this information coming. Everybody, have a wonderful day.